Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to get started with the board meeting. At the outset, I'll remind everyone in attendance that this is an open session of our proceedings, and that the meeting is being recorded, and it will be made available to the public afterwards. As is our custom, I'd like to start the meeting with a land acknowledgement. The Waterfront Toronto acknowledges that the land upon which we are undertaking our revitalization efforts is part of the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. In addition, Waterfront Toronto acknowledges that Toronto has historically been a gathering place for many Indigenous peoples, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishwabic, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples today. Thank you. The materials were all pre-circulated early last week. I have the agenda. I'd like to deal with the approval of the agenda. Any additions or changes proposed? If none, I'd be grateful to have a seconder approve the agenda. Kevin and the deputy. Oh, sorry, and Wendy. Thank you. Sorry, all those in favor? Declare that passed. We come now to declarations of conflict of interest. So we have a number of matters. Alicia declaring her interest with respect to Quayside. Leslie, the same. And I think Paul, have you got?
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah.
So, Ian, have you got those properly noted?
Thank you.
Do we need to say any more about them? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, well, I want to thank everyone who are able to join us today, particularly everyone here in person, and as well those who virtually. We understand that not everybody can get here. It's very nice to see so many of you in person, and thank you to the organization for organizing lunch. I specifically want to take this opportunity to thank our government partners for their participation today and for their ongoing support of Waterfront Toronto's activities. We have a number of important agenda items to consider and approve, including our year-end financial statements, the 23-24 integrated annual report. There's a few capital approvals, as you've seen in the materials, and there's matters related to compensation and performance. We're going to be joined later today around 3 o'clock. We'll have to accommodate, or 3:10, I think, George. We have senior representatives of each of our three stakeholder orders of government joining us to talk to us about their consideration of our mandate renewal and our funding requests. And we'll be hearing from them around 3, so we'll adjourn. So we'll break in whatever we're doing at that point to accommodate them. Before we get to the business of the meeting, I want to extend a warm welcome to our newest board member, Michael Braithwaite. Michael has been appointed by the federal government and comes to us with an impressive background of community service, and he has over 30 years of creating innovative solutions to support vulnerable people and their housing needs. He's currently the Chief Executive Officer of Blue Door. Michael, welcome to the board, and we look forward to your participation as we continue with our efforts on Toronto's waterfront. Okay, we're now to the consent agenda. First item in your book is a highlight of the items that we'll be considering today. The book itself contains a lot of detailed information that we're hoping that you've had an opportunity to review, but the summary includes, is a good summary of what we're dealing with today. So the first item on the agenda is our minutes of our open session of this board on March 25th. They've had a chance to review them. I'd like to have a motion, please, to approve the March 25th open meeting minutes. Can I have a mover? Lori, Ozma, seconder, any discussion? All those in favor? I declare that resolution passed. The next is our CEO's report. George has provided a detailed report in the materials. I'd like to treat that as having been read, but I think there are a few items that George wanted to specifically highlight and bring to our attention.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll take most of the report as read. I just want to also echo the welcome of Michael to the board and also welcome the renewal of our federal members. As you know, we were successful in securing the additional 159 million to complete our Portland's flood protection project, which has actually garnered much attention with the opening of the bridges and the inundation of the river. So I want to congratulate our staff for moving that project forward, keeping it under the new timelines and budget. Our discussions with governments continue, as we'll hear today, and we're moving closer to a common vision. A report regarding amendments to the precinct plan, official plan, and zoning bylaw for Villiers Island was presented to the Planning and Housing Committee on June 13th. And I'm happy to say that it was unanimously approved, and that had our 60% additional density included in there. Also happy to announce that we did successfully receive 34.2 million to proceed with leading the 60% design work for the LRT, and that work has already begun. So I think that's another great accomplishment that I thank my staff. As Jack knows, he was at the opening when we announced the Equinox, which is the winning design for the Keating Channel pedestrian bridge, which is actually a phenomenal design. Look forward to the completion of that project. Not going to keep belaboring the other points. I'll take any questions that any of the board members might have.
Oh, yes.
When will the precinct plan and all of that come back to the board?
The precinct plan itself?
Sorry, the changes and the updates that have just been, everything that's been approved by the city.
So it goes through the city now. So Kevin, I'll let you jump in on the next steps because that.
The Planning and Housing Committee a couple weeks ago. This week it'll go to council. Hopefully we'll be approved and then we can report on that next time we see you. Generally, we report it in through IREC. That's who usually gets the updates, but we can also bring it through farm.
Is that really your question?
Yeah, when's it coming back here? But then maybe I should just jump into IREC's next meeting to see if it's on the agenda.
Any other questions or comments related to George's report? Not seeing any hands up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, George. The consent agenda also includes reports from the chairs of Farm and IREC and Human Resources, Government and Stakeholder Relation Committees. All those reports were provided in the materials, and we'd like to take them as having been read. The committee chairs may wish to provide comments with respect to their work in this public portion, and we encourage any questions that people may have. Just everyone should be aware that there will be further items related to those reports in the closed session, and then there will be directors only regarding the compensation issues. But we start off with first, Kevin, any additions to your report?
My report will be quite brief. First of all, welcome Michael to the Farm Committee. It's overachieving and understaffed until now, so we welcome your participation. We've had a lot of heavy lifting to do with limited members, but our main went through a tremendous amount of material. Our main goal today is to recommend for approval the financial statements for this year to the board. We'll deal with that under later in the agenda under item 9. There's one small capital approval for Broadview East. That's a $16 million item that's being funded by the City of Toronto that we're also recommending that we proceed with, and we'll hear more about that as well. And just, I never get to report good news, but not stealing David's thunder, but the probability of our completion of the Portland has now gone up in probability, and the contingency has gone up from 39 million thanks to some changes and some good work by cost optimization. So we're fingers crossed and getting very close there and looking more and more positive. It was a good meeting, lots to talk about.
Good, thank you. Any questions of Kevin? All righty, Wendy.
Oh, thank you, Jack. So we had a very productive meeting on June 10th and addressed a very comprehensive HR report from Rose, and then ESG development. Cameron provided a strategic communications update that was excellent. And George presented a detailed report on corporate accomplishments for 23-24 and the alignment with the KPIs and strategic objectives. And I think we'll discuss more in closed session. So that's it.
Thank you. Any questions of Wendy? Thank you. Seeing and hearing none. Alicia, IREC?
Thanks, Jack. Just a brief update. So we met on May 23rd, 2024. As per usual in our meetings, we went through the development project dashboard and statistics. And we received updates from communication staff on public consultation in support of the municipal approvals, and update on next steps for ongoing public and Indigenous engagement on Villiers Island planning and development. So lots of updates from communications, and I think a good meeting overall.
Great, thank you. Any questions of Alicia? Okay. The consent agenda also includes information on Toronto Waterfront's insurance program and brief updates on the ESG matters. In the interest of time, I'll take those as read, but if there's questions, Lisa will be happy to answer them. Okay, generally it's a good news story there. Okay, the next item relates to our committee composition. So with Michael joining our board, it's all happened rather quickly. We considered it appropriate to have him join the farm committee. And I've spoken with Michael and Kevin and the other chairs of committees, and we're recommending that Michael join the farm committee. In addition, Wendy, after several years of yeoman service as the chair of the HRGSR committee, has indicated that given the changes in her business or the pressures of her business, she'd like to step down as the chair, but will continue as a member of the committee. Wendy, thank you. I want to really express my deepest appreciation for your work and effort and contributions. It's been great. Wendy, as well, we've considered that Rahul will step in. He is a member of that committee, and it's appropriate to qualifications in every respect to assume the role as chair of HRGSR. And while I would welcome comments and discussion, I think that one of the things that Rahul and I talked about when we talked about this assuming the position is that we would go through our matrix and review committee composition going forward. If we decide that there's not the compensation is fixed, guys. It's not happening. But that we would review composition going forward and come back to the board at an appropriate time if there's changes to be made. So if there's
Jack, can I comment on that? We will be distributing a survey to board members after today's board session. That survey will look at the diversity of the board, et cetera. So to continue to build on our baseline. So I just want to let the board know you'll receive something from me probably tomorrow.
Good. Okay, so any further question or comments about the proposal regarding Michael and Rahul? Hearing none, then I'd ask for a motion, please, to accept those appointments. Wendy and Lori, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? I declare that carried. Thank you.
Quick request of George. You're going to send that note out to the board. Can you attach the current board matrix?
Sure.
So we can see what everybody else is.
Yeah, I'll work with Rose. Well, I think Christina has that as well. So.
Okay, we're now to item 7 on the agenda, the Toronto Waterfront Toronto Priority Projects. Ask that David, our Chief Project Officer, give us a brief overview of where things are at. David, please.
Thanks, Jack. Charmaine, can we go ahead a couple of slides to the first photograph? So we have here a photo of just beside us in the Parliament slip. You can see that the slip infill project is well along its way. The new dock wall is in. And if you go to the next slide, a couple of weeks ago, fill was about 50% complete. It's 100% complete now. Project is not over. There's additional work to be done. We need that fill to settle before we can start building roads on it. But good progress being made. Next. In West Donlands, the Anishinaabe Health Center continues construction. 10, next. Akbaluna right next door. Your picture, but moving along quite nicely. Next. We are, or the developer, Tridel, has commenced work on Water's Edge Promenade next to the Aquilina building. That will be done by the end of this year. Limberlost Place, progress continues towards completion and occupancy in the next 6 to 9 months. In the river, in the past few weeks, TRCA caught a northern pike in the Cousin Slip area and a walleye, both fairly large fish, as you can see in the Keaton Channel. And we discovered, next slide, a bowfin in the river valley. So you can see the bottom of the river, very clean and clear. This was at the elbow, and I'm going to spend a second to talk to you about the bowfin. Bowfin is actually a living fossil. It is one of 2 species of fish from a group of fish that originated in the early Triassic 250 million years ago. So there's 2 of those remaining, not 2 fish, but 2 species. It's also called a mudfish or a dogfish, and it's a bimodal breather, so it can breathe both water and air. So you can see what you're looking at here is this fish is actually guarding its nest. That dark patch is all of the baby bowfish that have been hatched. Hatched is the right word. And in the river, and they will, over time, find their way out back into the Lake Ontario. So very interesting 100-year-old seeds, 250 million-year-old fish. Not the construction project we all thought we were getting. Next. Oh, some more things that we weren't aware of. So in River Park North, in the play areas or the activity areas, we have a number of totems or carved animals. We've got our parrot, actually.
Bald eagle.
Oh, bald eagle. Thank you.
Parrot.
Terrible.
Eagle.
See, that's very good that you were able to pick that up.
You were just testing it.
Yes. Next slide. And then we have the beaver and the bear and the carver.
The carver sculptor.
Oh, I don't know his name.
So what was the question, please?
The name of the artist's name. I will get it.
Person staff would know.
All that thought.
Bear wearing
He's covering, his hands are covering his tummy. He's fluffy.
Next slide.
You only.
In River Park North, part of the activity areas is the Badlands Scramble. So a recreation of the Cheltenham Badlands that will actually be a water play. Carver is Richter Spielgerät, who's actually works for a company called APE, and they're German. Thank you, Mira. Yes, I was talking about the Badlands Scramble. So this is actually just about completed. Lots still to be done in the activity areas of the River Park. Next. Some of the other areas, the nature activity areas with zip lines and slides and very interesting swing sets. Next. At the east end is the dog off leash area. Next. And here's the snowy owl, the base of the snowy owl, in preparation for the rest of the structure, which is about, what did we say, 7 meters? 8 meters tall. Next. The west plug, so the main, the upper portions of the D wall or the west plug have been removed. You can see the structure, the concrete structure on the left side is not there on the east. So we are still working on removing all of the wall below water, below the water level, and that will happen over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks.
So the plug will be open by the end of,
That, yes, that plug will be open end of June, early August.
thank you.
Sorry, end of July.
And then there's one more plug.
One more plug, which is the next photo. So this is the north plug. This is all that remains of the north plug. You'll see the overhead view. Next slide, Charmaine. It illustrates the excavation that's been done. So on the south side or on the bottom of this photo, you can see the river, the new river valley with the wetland to the west and the ice management area, and then all of the excavation that's happened north where Villiers Street used to be. It's all been excavated, and we are in the process of completing the finishes in that area. And sometime towards the end of summer, early fall, we will remove that last bit of concrete wall to open up the New River Valley to the north. Next is the video.
You're looking east. You're looking east over the new mouth for the Don River. The river was flooded in February 2024, but it's not fully connected to the lake just yet. Until the parks open next summer, this new river is closed to the public for safety reasons. The left side of the Polson Slip has changed from a straight dock wall, like you see on the right, to a more natural shoreline that slopes into the water. Recently, the Toronto and Region Conservation Authority caught a northern pike and a pumpkin seed fish in this area, the first time these species have been recorded in that location. The elevated area you see here is the future promontory or overlook, a high point in the park that will provide views towards the city and to the new river. This small strip of concrete is the foundation of the former Marine Terminal 35 building, which handled much of Toronto's marine cargo while it was operating. The foundation is being retained and incorporated into the park as a nod to the area's industrial heritage. This area is planned to become an extension of the park we are building now. This is the landing point for the future Keating Channel pedestrian bridge. The old Cherry Street Bridge is now gone, leaving just the foundations to be removed. Here, you can see how the bridge's foundations jutted out in the Keating Channel, creating a pinch point for floodwaters. Removing it is an important part of our plans for flood protection. On the east side of the river, you can see the path of Don Roadway. It's being rebuilt at a higher elevation and will include green infrastructure to naturally manage stormwater. This is the sediment and debris management area. Most of the recent work here involved the construction of underground storm infrastructure, which has now been completed. Work is ongoing to replace the north half of the Lakeshore Bridge, including excavating within the footprint of the new bridge. It will be wider and longer to match the south half that was already built. This thin strip of concrete is what is left of the North Plug, an underwater wall that separates the existing Don River from the new river system we built. It will be removed by the end of this year. As we fly over the New River Valley, you can see the plants we planted over the past 2 years waking up from the winter. Now we're working on building the more traditional parks on either side of the wetlands. You can see some of the grading work happening to create the new landscapes. The park on the north side of the river will include some unique and exciting play structures. This structure is a raccoon reaching for some dragonflies, and it's near the future picnic area so that kids can play in view of their caregivers. Where else would you expect a raccoon to be? The patch of red you see is the Badlands Scramble, a play feature inspired by the Cheltenham Badlands. The new river and parks are on track to open to the public next summer in 2025.
And that's all.
It's gotten, sorry.
Can I make a request? It is sort of a, normally make a request to have the conception of this river and everything started. That they're all commissioned on the future of the Toronto waterfront, and I'm going to make sure that David Crombie is invited to whatever opening happens when it does happen.
Well, building
Good.
on that, just being able to hear a little bit more about when the opening, I know, like, being full, and what the timeframe around that.
Well, it will be in the fall, not fully determined exactly when, either the end of August or September. But we will let everyone know. So notice when we anticipate celebrating that event. Government partners have also expressed interest in getting early notice to try and get set up to have some sort of event.
And maybe David, just to say, there's an update coming from Cameron in the director's session on the next 6 to 9 months on a strategic comms position, including that critical milestone. So you'll get a little bit more on that later in the agenda.
I know the digital videos have been very popular in the community, so it's been a great tool to educate people as to what all that development is actually going to look like.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions of David? Any other comments? Thank you. All right, David, you've also got a capital approval budget item for us on the Broadview Eastern Flood Protection Project.
So we are to get a supplementary capital approval from the board for some additional work for the Broadview Eastern Flood Protection Project. That will take us through to the end of February 2025. We can go to the next 2 slides in. There. So we're looking to get approval for an additional 14.725 million, total of about 31 million. This is to allow us to redesign the flood protection landform. The city and province have agreed as part of the New Deal to proceed with the complete flood protection landform for Broadview Eastern. Our original plan was to do a temporary grading solution and then a future full flood protection landform. So as a result of the province agreeing to work to, I guess, take the land over from its current landowner, we are going to proceed with the whole project. I would just note here that City Council will be, it will be on the agenda for this week to get the approval to move forward and to indicate the staff to include the budget and the funding for this as part of the 2025 city budget process. So we anticipate that the full project will be funded by about the time that we are out of money for this phase. So next, we'll spend a lot of time. You'll have a chance to read it, but we are going to do the redesign and its detailed design to 90%. We're looking at the demolition of the Avenue Bridge over the Don River and start the procurement process to allow us to begin the construction of the actual project next July. They call it a site and work. Just as a note, the project will be included in the 5-year plan. We do have a couple of previous capital approvals that are identified here. And as it notes, this capital approval will take us to 31, just over 31 million. Next. Moving. This is the area that we're dealing with, and we are essentially protecting from the Lakeshore subdivision, so the Lakeshore Bridge, or sorry, it's Lakeshore GO lines at the south end, up along the Don Valley Parkway on the east side to Eastern Avenue. That's where the flood protection landform will be constructed, and then that will protect all of the balance of East Harbor, as well as areas to the east of the Don River that can't be flood protected through the Eastern Avenue underpass. Next.
And David, the land acquisitions have been done. I see that.
They're in process. So Metrolinx is working, negotiating with the current owner. And they need to go through an appropriation proceeding, but for the moment they're still negotiating.
What's the Coxwell project?
Oh, the Coxwell project is a very, very large sanitary sewer diversion. So there's only one sanitary sewer that comes down from the north to Ashbridges Bay. So this is a secondary, it's basically a bypass of that sewer that runs down the Don Valley. So that the work can be done on either one of the sewers in the future if necessary. Something like a 12-foot diameter pipe. It's very, very large.
And David, can I just ask, what's the backstory of the 60% redesign piece? What?
The original design or the original plan that was as part of the EA was to do a grading solution that allowed the current landowner or their tenant BMW to continue to operate their facility, their sales center, and would allow us to do essentially to get the flood protection that we needed in order to complete that work. So the backstory is that the province determined in discussions with the city that they would like to actually just proceed with the full flood protection, deal with the tenant or deal with the landowner today, and get all of the work done. And then this area ultimately can be reused, can be redeveloped once it's flood protected. So that was the discussion. And I think they may be discussing with the current owner the ability to come back and actually take back the land and develop it. So it'll get worked out.
Okay, thank you.
Next. This is just an example of floodwaters and what the area will flood. So you can see water coming through the Eastern Avenue underpass at the lower right-hand corner of this graphic. The work that we do will essentially flood protect this entire area plus Eastern Avenue. Next. That's too much detail, so we'll just keep going. Some risks that we have to deal with, a lot of underground work, a lot of utilities that we have to address. So we are working with as a city and the engineers to ensure that we are identifying and accounting for risks to the extent that we're able to. Next. Again, just for information, what's completed to date. And the work that we're going to be doing includes the demolition in the fall, 90% detailed design for October. The issue for tender drawings by the end of the year, and then commencement of subcontractor procurement. We're looking, as mentioned, for capital approval of additional 14 million, just over 14 million next. Next slide, just some details, more details. And yeah, next. Just to note that the project is being funded by the city through delivery agreements. We have delivery agreements for the first two, and our work will obtain delivery agreement for the additional funding prior to commencing. Recommendation is board of directors approve the additional capital expenditure to advance the Broadview Eastern Subsection project, subject to the execution of funding agreements.
Thank you, David. Leslie?
Just a question, clarification, just so I understand, the protection is to enable Broadview to extend south to connect, right?
That's also-
Otherwise, because otherwise there, you can't run that road through there,
That's correct.
and then creating more developable land, just to
Creates
be.
more developable.
Okay,
That's
so,
right.
so my second question is, so the city is 100% funding all the flood protection works? Or is this, just this portion?
No, the city will fund up to, I believe, 200 million of the work, and the province will fund the balance. And there's a substantial amount of cost related to actually assuming ownership of the site.
And what is the balance? Do we know?
We do not.
Oh,
The balance of it is essentially up to the province to cover. So, and the balance of it is really related to the cost of acquiring the land from its current ownership. Our estimate of the
So we
total,
know the cost of the work we have to do.
Yeah,
but we
our-
don't know it's the appropriation cost. Sorry,
so
just to
like
clarify.
order of magnitude, where is it, because is it a billion?
no,
I'm just trying to get a sense, if the city is 200 million, what's the balance?
estimated 200 million,
Another 200 million.
another 200.
Subject of an expropriation.
Yeah, that's
Which
in the
is why-
negotiation.
Yeah, and then, so there's no private sector contribution to the protection.
So that is actually not the case. The city, while the city is funding us 100%, the city will be obtaining funding, I believe, from the private sector for portions. We're not privy to what those portions are.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Just one additional, is there any risk of timing on the execution of the funding agreement with the city as it relates to the other risks?
No, not at all.
So I think, David, you said this has been recommended by executive committee to council this week,
That's right.
so we should have the approval this week. Okay, anything further? Then can I kindly have that motion, please? Lori, seconded by Rahul. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, I declare that motion carried. Okay, very good. We are at the year-end audited financial statements. Turn that over to Lisa, please.
So the corporation's March 31st, 2024 year-end audited financial statements are being presented today for board approval. Our legislation requires that audited financial statements be signed by representatives of management, typically the CEO and CFO, as well as board, typically the board chair and farm chair, and delivered to governments in both English and French by the end of this month. That's June 30th. Before I pass over to my esteemed colleague, Sampara Jandane, who's our Director of Financial Management, to provide a few brief highlights, I just want to highlight three things today for the board. The first is that Waterfront Toronto follows Canadian public sector accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations, and there have been no changes to an accounting policy this year. The second is, and as Kevin mentioned earlier, the Farm Committee reviewed these financial statements with our external auditors from BDO Canada at their meeting on June the 6th. And at that meeting, BDO reported that they intend to issue an unqualified clean audit opinion and that there were no matters of concern regarding internal controls. BDO's draft audit report can be found within the materials on pages 78 to 79. It's 2 pages long. And this report will be signed and issued by BDO following board approval today. And then the third thing is that, as mentioned by Kevin, the Farm Committee is recommending approval by board today of our year-end financial statements. So Sampara, if you'd like to just provide a few brief highlights for us.
Thank you, Lisa, and good afternoon to all of you. I'll just dwell into some key operational performance indicators of the financial statements, such as overall cash position, receivables, revenues, expenditures, and net assets. As Lisa mentioned, a draft copy of the clean and unqualified independent auditors report issued by the corporation's external auditors BDO is attached to page 78 of the material. With that background, we'll just turn to page 80 of the material, Charmaine, which is the statement of financial position. The key components that I want to highlight in this statement are cash, receivables, and assets under development. Overall, unrestricted cash of 46.8 million is lower than cash and investments total of 119 million at March 31st, 2023, mainly due to two factors. One, utilization of working capital for the Portland's project, and two, higher outstanding receivables of 117 million compared to 81 million last year. Over 50% of these receivables are made up of outstanding claims from the city and the province for the Portland's project. As of today, most of the receivables, including the government receivables, have been realized subsequent to year end. The other significant item on the statement of financial position is the assets under development. You will see that the increase in the assets under development from last year, combined with the expenses shown in the statement of financial activities, account for the total capital investments of 256.8 million made by the corporation during the fiscal year, which are down 17% from last year, mainly due to the acquisition of Parliament slip last year, combined with lower expenditures for Portland's project this year. These were the key items in the statement of financial state position. With that, I would like to turn to page 81 of the material. This is the statement of financial activities or income statement. The items that I want to highlight, in this statement are revenues and net operating income. You can see that while the restricted contributions, which are primarily comprised of government contributions, mostly for the Portland's project, are slightly higher at 207 million compared to 192 million last year. The overall revenues of 217.7 million, which are combined, is restricted as well as unrestricted contributions, which is basically government contributions, interest, as well as parking revenues, are down 39% from last year due to realization of land sale revenues last year compared to nil this year. The second significant item that I would like to highlight is the higher net operating income of 9.7 million last year, this year, compared to 6.7 million last year. And this is basically due to higher interest income resulting from higher interest rates that the corporation has earned. With this, we can turn to page 82 of the material, Charmaine, the next page, which is where I would briefly like to discuss the statement of changes in net assets, which is the second table on this page. During the current fiscal year, the corporation has transferred certain Portland's assets, specifically Cherry North, comprising of roads, bridges, and underlying utilities to the City of Toronto. And as such, you will see the reduction of 72.6 million in the net assets, representing the transfer of assets. And this reduction is also reflected in our assets under development in the statement of financial position. The Portland's assets will be transferred on in various stages over the course of next year and a half or so. This covers basically the statement of financial position and the financial activities. I'll just like to turn to one item in the notes to the financial statements, which is on page 89 of the material. Specifically note 13B. As of March 31st, 2024, the corporation has an unrestricted surplus of 47.2 million, which is accumulated primarily from unrestricted revenues such as land sale, parking, and interest income. These were really the key items or significant items that I wanted to highlight. At this point, I conclude my presentation and welcome any questions that you might have pertaining to the statements.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Sampata or Lisa? Rahul, please.
First of all, congratulations. It's always nice to get a clean audit, so well done on that. Mine has to do with the last note on the impact of climate risk that shows up actually underneath here. And it struck me, though, that it's backwards looking, which is, I understand the context of it. Maybe a good question for Lisa a little bit more. How do we start to account for this in terms of our financial statements going forward and in terms of climate risk?
So that would be in our integrated annual report that's coming up in the closed agenda.
where we have an appendix 4, and we make a whole bunch of disclosures related to climate risk, including what we're doing to measure and mitigate climate risk as a corporation, and that's forward-looking. One of the things we're doing is doing our inventory of our greenhouse gas emissions, specifically on the scope 3, which is our supply chain, and getting further information about what our emissions are in our supply chain, and determining what we can do from a design perspective and a construction perspective to reduce our greenhouse gases for those, because that's over 90% of our emissions actually.
I'll have some questions on that report when we
Okay.
get to that part of it.
All right.
That's good. So this is what I was trying to connect you to. I know we're doing a lot there, but I haven't seen a statement quite like this on audited financials yet. And it just said, as of the financial statement date, there's been no material impact on the financial position and or results of the operation as a result of climate change. And had me thinking, say, that's an awfully big statement to make.
It is, and actually our external auditors, the same question came up at
I asked them
the
that same
farm
question.
committee. Yeah, and their response was they have to do a whole bunch of work to audit that disclosure. And it is a voluntary disclosure. We don't actually have to put it in there, but because we're trying to be leaders in terms of our ESG and climate action planning, we put it in there. And Zapata and others have put together a big memo, which a lot had all of the information that I just mentioned that's in the integrated annual report into it, that BDO then audited to make sure was valid in terms of the things that we were saying and what we're doing from a risk and mitigation point of view.
Learning journey on this one.
Yeah,
For sure.
and that's what
Very
they said
complex.
as well.
Very complex, and there's a lot of moving parts, but basically it's what's your impact on the climate, and what's the accounting impact of that? And so far, we're only at the accounting impact is minimal. But there's much more to be developed on this, and we're just trying to stay current. But I asked the exact same questions of them, and they have, believe me, all the major accounting firms are spending massive amounts of time on how they're going to deal with this issue.
Very good.
Thank you for that question. Any others? Hearing none, anything further, Lisa or Kevin, you want to add? No, we need approval. Yeah,
The motion, I think.
please. So I need a motion to approve the March 31st, 2024 financial statements. Linda mover, Kevin seconder, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, I declare that carried. You?
Lisa, can I just clarify, we'll need Kevin and Jack to sign those off today?
Yes, the physical copies of the financial statements, yeah.
Thank you.
All righty, well, thank you all. It is 2:24. Any sign of our guests?
No, not yet, I think. No.
All righty, well then I take a motion to go into closed session, please. Kevin, Lori, oh, sorry, Alicia, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we're in closed session. Thank you. Okay, we are back. We are now back in open session and the recording has been turned back on. It is now appropriate to consider certain resolutions arising from the closed session. So firstly, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 24th closed session of the board? Alicia and Wendy, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. I need a motion to approve the capital expenditure for the Quayside infrastructure as described to the board during the meeting. This is the $14.7 million.
Can you scroll up?
Sorry, the Quayside is.
Sorry,
There it is there.
oh,
Yeah.
no,
That's a different one.
which one?
That's Quayside.
Oh, that's,
That's the 14 millions for the,
oh, right, was for
Broadview East.
for the, okay, so I'm sorry.
This is the capital for the 182 million extension of the
Right.
112.
As noted up there, get a motion to approve that?
Yes, so yes, so it's the motion that's on the board, item 16B, Quayside capital approval. Can I have a mover? Lori, thank you. Ozma, thank you. For seconder, all in favor? Any opposed? None, it's carried. So now I need the motion to approve. Oh, sorry, where, I don't see that. I don't see Broadview.
Broadview's done.
Yeah, we did an open.
It was open.
Oh, is that an open?
Great
Sorry,
annual report.
thank you. All right. May I have a motion to approve the capital request to advance the work on Villiers Island? I've got Wendy and Lori, all in favor. Any opposed? That one is carried. And then I've got the motion to approve the integrated annual report. Kevin and Drew, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? That one is carried. And then I've got a motion to approve the compensation arrangements for the CEO as described during the board meeting. I've got Lori and Wendy, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? That one is carried. So, thank you all for a very good and productive meeting. I appreciate your candor. Anything else?
No, it's
Better,
great.
Paul.
Thank
Motion to terminate. All in favor?
I.
Carried. Have a great summer,
Yeah,
everybody.
have a great summer.